Good morning, kid. It is 1 p.m. on Friday, January the 3rd, and I'm coming to you today with a definitive ranking of every single book I read last year, and I'm really excited about it. I read 40-ish books, I think closer to 42. I don't know exactly the number. Most of them are next to me, some of them are behind me, some of them were from the library, so I don't have them with me. But I'm going to go through them one by one from worst to best and tell you kind of what they were about if I remember. If I don't remember, I will BS it, in which case, don't take my word for it, because I might remember things wrong, and that's okay. Yeah, I'm also getting over a little cold, so if I sound really sniffly, that's why, and we're gonna all forgive, and everything's gonna be okay. Everything's gonna be okay. Everything's gonna be okay. To start off, right at the very bottom of my list, I'm going to talk about two books that I did read this year that I'm not counting, which are this, the Rubaiyat, I don't know if that's how you say it, of Omar Khayyam, which is like Persian poetry. I read it for class. It was good. Like, I enjoyed it, but I don't know. I don't really have anything to say about it because I read it for class. The same is true for Survival in Auschwitz by Primo Levi, which, again, I read it for class. It's like exactly what you think it is. It's a memoir about the concentration camps during the Holocaust. It's very intense. It's well written. I wrote essays on it. I don't have much to say, so I'm not counting it in my ranking, but like it was good. Yeah, that's that. I'm also not counting in my ranking 3 books that I started reading and then gave up on, which is not something I'm usually inclined to do. And that was The Book of Love by an author whose name I don't remember. This was fantasy-ish, but like it didn't read like a fantasy, and it was really boring and not, I don't know, I didn't care about the characters or the plot or the writing or the setting, and so I was like, well, maybe this one's just not for me. So I stopped reading that after maybe like 30 pages. I also stopped reading We Had to Remove This Post by another author whose name I do not remember at this time. This is a very short book, like maybe 100 pages, about a woman who's working as a content moderator, I think for Google. I don't know if it says what company it is, but it's just her like reviewing videos and being like, oh, a beheading, I better take this off the internet. And like it was boring. I didn't care about anything, and I felt like after a few pages I was like, well, this is so short that not reading it would be the same as reading it. Like, that would be this practically the same experience, so I may as well just not read it. And I had other things I was more excited about anyway, so it went. And then the last thing, I don't know if it was this order, but the last thing I read and then gave up on was Lonely Castle in the Mirror by, you guessed it, an author whose name I don't remember. This one was particularly sad for me because I read this after it being on my TBR for literal years because it's Allison Page's favorite book. Allison Pages is my favorite YouTuber. I miss her every day. Mwah. She's still with us. Don't worry, she's just not on YouTube anymore. And she always talks about this book, and I trust her taste so much. And so I was really excited to love it, but I just didn't. It's a YA novel about a girl who is not going to school because she's having trouble going to school, and so she stays home every day, and then she enters this magical world that has like a castle, and other kids also go to this world every day who are also not going to school for different reasons, and then they bond, basically, right? And like, plot seemed fine. I think I just struggle with Japanese translations. I don't know what it is about that, and I've never really heard anybody else say that before, so maybe it's just me. I don't think it's the translator's fault. Like, I think the language doesn't translate well into English. Something about the sentence structure is, like, clunky, and I just have a very hard time sinking my teeth into it, which sucks, because there's so many Japanese novels that, like, people rave about, and I want to be able to love them, but I just haven't been able to. I had the same problem with Before the Coffee Gets Cold. Maybe I need to try Murakami, because I know people love him, and like maybe something will click for me, but this just wasn't it. Okay. Now that that's out of the way, we're gonna get to the real meat and potatoes. The actual worst book, because I don't count the ones I didn't read. I'm not a fair judge if I didn't actually read them. The actual worst book I read this year was The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride. Oh my god. I don't have it with me, which is probably for the best, because I don't think I would be very nice to it physically. You guys, this book was on so many best of the year lists. It was Barnes and Noble's little darling book all year. It was in all of their promotional stuff, and you walked in and it was in their big thing, and they were like, look, our best book of the year. No, they're lying to you. Listen to me. It's a lie. It's a psyop mission. It's a lie. This book is one of the worst things I think I've ever read in my life. And maybe I just feel so passionately about that because I went in with such high expectations. It still makes me mad to think about it. Oh my god. Okay. I like going into books knowing very little, like as little as possible. And I went into this knowing vaguely that it was about a rural town in Pennsylvania? I don't remember the state. That has like a predominant Jewish community and a predominant Black community, and it's like talking about how those two communities interact through generations. It's historical, and I was like, this is so up my alley, so up my alley. I love historical fiction. I love like stories that span multiple generations. I love Judaism in books. Like, this is it. I was like, this is gonna be great. This is gonna be one of my favorites of the year. I can't wait. No. Because when I tell you nothing happened, and listen, I'm not the kind of person to criticize a book for being no plot, just vibes. I love no plot, just vibes. But the thing is, when you have no plot, you need the vibes. Like, that's the transaction you're making. And vibes means, like, well-developed characters and good writing and messaging and setting and, like, immersion and atmosphere and, like, all those things, which, like, are my favorite parts of a book. Like, I don't care about plot that much, but you have to have all those other things. And this had none of them. Nothing. The writing was so, like, obnoxiously bad. I could not believe that this book went through editing. I was like, did the editor just take a vacation? Because it was just not good. And when I think about it, I honestly, like, I'm mad that I spent the amount of time that I did reading this. It took me like a month and a half to read this book. That wasn't even that long. It was like a few hundred pages. No. Bad way to start. No. Don't read it. Do yourself a favor. Skip it. Everybody's lying to you. It's not good. I promise. Ah! The next one, I'm not going to count numbers because I'm not going to be able to keep track. This is 40-something. The next book I read that I didn't like was The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. Now, you might be saying, hey Dana, why did you read this? And the answer to that is, I don't really know. I think I've been trying to like fantasy for so long now, but it's just not working. It's just not working. And I think I thought that if I start with YA, it'll be more accessible and like easier to read. Nothing happens in this book. Nothing happens. Nothing at all. Oh my gosh, so boring. The writing was bad. I don't really have anything to say about it. It was bad, and I didn't care about it, and I didn't care about the characters, and I just wanted it to be over the whole time. And I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop and something to happen, and then it didn't. So, like, whatever. I'm not even going to give you a plot summary, because it's not worth it. Whatever. Next we have The Lemon Tree by Sandy Tolan, which I read for school as well. Now listen. This is a nonfiction about... how do I even explain this? This is a nonfiction about, like, the history of the Israel-Palestine conflict, basically, but it just wasn't very good. I had two main issues with it, other than the fact that, like, the writing was really dense and it was kind of hard to get through. Like, I'm not that mad about that, but, you know, now that I'm looking at it, I, like, annotated it a lot, so maybe I cared. But, like, no, I think I was annotating it because I was mad at it. Now that I'm reading all of the things that I wrote, I'm like, oh, this is bad, so never mind. Yeah, so other than that, my two main issues with it were, one, that it's really presenting itself as, like, unbiased, like, this is just the facts, but, like, when you see just the facts, like, it doesn't read as unbiased, because, like, facts mean something, and so to, like, present it like that, but then not come to a conclusion felt cheap. Like, I don't know, I didn't like that. Then the other thing I didn't like was that it's written almost like a novel, so, like, it's entirely nonfiction, and it's, like, following the story of an Arab and a Jew who, like, have this relationship, friendship thing through turmoil, like, whatever, and it's true, and it's, like, using their interviews as dialogue, but it's not written as nonfiction. Like, everything about it reads like a novel, which is done on purpose, and I get the point, like, it's supposed to make you connect with them more, I guess, but it just didn't work for me. Like, I think when you're talking about something that's, like, as real and important and, like, consequential as this is, like, it doesn't work to make it fiction, and it didn't I don't know. It wasn't good. I didn't like it. Yeah, that's it. The next thing I read and didn't like was Good Material by Dolly Alderton. No, I didn't hate it. I wouldn't say I'm mad at this book. It was extremely forgettable and boring. It's about a man who gets broken up with and he's sad. I wish I could tell you more than that, but I literally can't because, like, that's the plot. He's just like, oh, it's so sad to be single. Okay. I didn't care. That's it. Sorry. I have nothing else to say about that. The next one that I also wouldn't say I liked, but I wouldn't say I don't recommend it. I don't know. I feel complicatedly about this one. Is Light from Uncommon Stars by Rika Aoki. I don't know if that's how you say her name. But this book was so silly. I'm laughing just thinking about it. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'll tell you the plot. So this book is about a trans teenager. I think she's a teenager. I actually don't remember how the book starts. No, listen. I read it a while ago. And do I remember everything? No, I don't. But I'm going to do my best. She runs away from home. And she plays violin. And then she gets, like, picked up by a violin, like, teacher, mentor, who, like, takes her in and then mentors her to, like, train her to be a master violinist, right? And so you're like, okay, that sounds cool. Like, that sounds nice and cool. I'm missing a few plot points, and don't worry, I'll get to them. For example, one, the teacher, and I don't know why this was necessary, but it was, the teacher has made a deal with a demon. You didn't know this was a fantasy? Well, surprise, it sure is. The teacher has made a deal with a demon where she has to sell the souls of her students in order to get talent, something like that. I don't even really remember, but there's something with a devil demon bro going on there. And then also, you thought I was done? No, I'm not. There's also, separately from everything else, a family of aliens. Oh, you didn't know that this was a sci-fi? Surprise, it is. There's a family of aliens and they own a donut shop, but the donut shop is a front for their alien endeavors, that they're here from another planet. And then the mother of that family has a relationship with the teacher, and it's just like unnecessary. Like, all of that was just, every word I read I was like, what is this book? And like, I don't know, I guess I applaud creativity, but it wasn't that good. It was like fine. I think it was easy enough to get through, but I didn't really care about the characters. And like, I'm saying this quietly so nobody gets mad at me, but the queer messaging was like a little heavy-handed for me. I'm sorry, sue me, throw tomatoes at me, I know, I'm sorry, but like, I like nuance in things, and this was just like, it's hard to be trans, and I was like, I know, and like, which is not to say that I think, I don't think that it was bad for that. I think that it was not what I wanted, right? Like, it's not what I'm looking for in a book. I think that if you're in middle school, like, this was a YA, I forgot to say that. I think that if you're young and queer, or not queer, and like reading this, it will be valuable to you. Like, I do think that, but it wasn't really, I didn't learn anything new, you know? And I just, I don't know. Sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Anyway, next is Where the Mountain Meets the Moon by Grace Lin. Is that her name? Yeah, I guess it is. This is a middle grade about, I don't even remember. It's a fantasy, and it's about a little girl, and she goes on an adventure, and like, it was good. I don't know. I'm honestly surprised it made it this high up. I feel like this section gets a little muddy. Like, I kind of had to put things places so things could kind of be anywhere. But it's fine. If you're 11 and you're like, I need a good book to read, you might want to try this out. And otherwise, it's fine. Like, I'm not going to be screaming from the mountaintops about it, but I had no issues with it. The next one is The Prince of Los Cocuyos by Richard Blanco. I read this for class as well. This is a memoir about a young Cuban-American growing up in Florida. Yeah, I guess Florida. And it was pretty good. I didn't care about it that much. I remember enjoying it while I was reading it, and I guess that's why it's this high up. I wanted a lot more of the queer story, because it's like about him growing up queer in this community, but then like, it's actually not about that, because there's only like 2 chapters that even touch on that, and I wanted a lot more of that. And I think that's why it's not higher up. But if you're a memoir person, like, it was pretty good. I think you would enjoy it, probably. Next I read Scythe by Neal Shusterman. Now, Why did I read this book? I don't know. People on BookTube seem to love it, but it's just like fine. Like it's fine. It's very middle grade. YA, middle grade? I don't even remember. It felt really juvenile. And like, I'm not someone, I love middle grade books. Like, I'll reread The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane over and over again until I die. But like, sometimes I'm like, I'm not the target audience. And that's how I felt about this. It was fine. It was good. My brother really likes them. But I'm not the target audience. So like, I don't know. This is about a world where nobody dies. It's the future, and nobody dies, and there's no illness, and so everyone's great and happy all the time. But then, oh no, there's overpopulation. What should we do? I guess we'll create a society of people whose job it is to kill other people. Those are the scythes, and they go around and they're like, I kill you today, and that's the only way you can die. And they're like respected, like they're like authority figures that people like revere because they're playing this important role in society. And so like it was interesting. The premise is interesting, but like if I'm gonna read about a society where nobody dies, which like that's the most interesting part of this setting for me, I would just rather read my football satellites. So like, sorry, it was fine. It was fine. It was fine. Next is, and it was upside down in my stack, Out of Place by Edward Said. This was also for class. I'm guessing you can sense a theme. This and The Lemon Tree and the Richard Blanco one. It was all about like immigration and stuff. I don't know what to say about this. I guess it made it this high up, so I guess it left an impression. But also, I don't know, you guys. I don't really know. I mean, I don't think I need to tell you who Edward Said is. This felt good to be reading now. Like, very timely, certainly. I will say, this is a memoir. This is his memoir. His most famous book is Orientalism, which I think a lot of people have read. I have not read it, but maybe I will one day. And this is not that. He's an academic, so, like, even though it's a memoir, it still is very dense. Like, it was kind of hard to get through, even though I was enjoying it. But I did like it. So, I don't know. I don't know what to say about this one. If you have read Orientalism and you enjoyed it, or if you've heard Edward Said speak, I've seen interviews with him talking, and he is a fantastic speaker. Like, he is so captivating, and you just want to sit and listen to him say anything. If you feel either of those things, you should probably read this, because it was interesting, and it made me think about a lot of things, and I know that's really vague, but the problem is, I read it a while ago, so I don't actually remember what the things I thought were. I'm sorry. It was good, though. Oh! I missed one. This was supposed to be before Scythe. But actually it doesn't matter that much, because nothing in this section is anything I felt particularly passionate about. But I guess this was supposed to be before Scythe. This is Bloom by Kevin Panetta and Savannah Ganuccio. I'm sorry. It's a graphic novel. I read a lot of graphic novels this year. It's like cute. It's cute. It's about a young gay teenager. Is he? I don't remember, you guys. I read this a while ago, and it was cute while I read it, and then I didn't think about it for 1 second afterwards. So if you're, like, into queer graphic novels, like, if you read Heartstopper and you like Heartstopper, you may as well. Like, it was fun, it was cute. But I'm not obsessed with it. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. This is what's actually supposed to be after Out of Place, and this is the Decameron by Giovanni Boccaccio, which I read, you guessed it, for a class. Now, look at that. This one's a monster, and I'm showing you this, but you're not seeing how small the text is. It's tiny. It's fucking tiny. I did not read this whole book. This is, like, kind of a novel, kind of a short story collection, kind of both. It's very old. It's about these people that, like, escape to the countryside during the plague. It's translated from Italian, and they're, like, hanging out in the countryside in order to, they're like quarantining basically, and they're just like telling each other stories every day, like silly stories, and it was one of the funniest things I think I've ever read in my life. I'm so serious about that. I know that sounds like a joke. It's not a joke. Like, oh my god. Wait, I need to find you some sections. Yes, this was the one. My favorite story. Okay, my favorite story is about this guy who becomes a gardener at a nunnery, and then he starts fucking all the nuns, and then oh my god, it was so funny. It was one of the funniest things I ever read in my life. He's like applying, basically, like he's interviewing to have this job, and they're like telling him the instructions of like what he has to do, and he goes, "Once you put me inside that garden of yours," he said to himself gleefully, "I'll tend it better than it's ever been tended before." So basically, I'm gonna tell you the whole story because it's really funny and I don't care. He starts fucking one nun, and then the other nuns find out, and they're like mad for a second, but then they're like, actually, I want to get in on this. And so then he's fucking all the nuns, and then the like lady that's in charge of everything finds out about this, and she calls him to her office, and he thinks that she's gonna be mad at her. Then she starts fucking him too, and then they become like the most happy. Like he just lives there his whole life. Like you'd think they're gonna get mad at him and kick him out, but they don't. He just hangs out in the nunnery his whole life until he's an old man, and the nuns are happy. It's great. Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. It's a lot of like poking fun at the church, which like it's good. It's good stuff. I highly recommend. If you want like a little snippet, read one story. Obviously you don't need to read all this, but it was fun. It was a fun time. Next is Cultish by Amanda Montell. Yes, I read this toward the beginning of the year, I think. This is a nonfiction about cults and like how they use language in order to get people to do what they want, and how that language is pervasive in all of society and not just in cults. So like if you think of exercise things, like what's the one in a box? CrossFit! That's it. If you think of like CrossFit, or you think of like, I don't know, I don't even remember it that well. I liked it because I like reading about language, but it didn't stick with me that much. So it was pretty good, and it's written very accessibly. But I kind of felt like she was saying nothing the whole time, so like, I guess it made it this high up, so I can't be that mad at it. But I don't really have much else to say about that. My next one is Elsewhere by Alexis Shakin? I don't know how to say his name. This is, if the competition was best cover of the year, this is winning this year and every other year. Oh my gosh. It's so beautiful. I want to eat it. Oh, isn't it stunning? It's stunning. Anyway, I liked this a lot, except I also didn't. And that's interesting. This is about a town thing, community, society that lives in the mountains, that is like secluded from the rest of the world, and it's like kind of magical realism. There's a lot about motherhood and childhood and motherhood, and I liked it. Like, I wasn't obsessed with it while I was reading it. While I was reading it, it felt a little bit dull sometimes and kind of slow, which is a feat given how short it is. But after I finished reading it, I found myself thinking about parts of it like long after. There's parts of this book that I still think about today. So I think that puts it higher up than I initially thought it would be. And honestly, it was worth it just to have this on my bookshelf. Oh my gosh. Are you kidding? Stunning. You can't tell because my lighting is bad. It's like so vibrant. Oh, beautiful, delicious, incredible. Love it so much. Good work. Good work, everyone. Next up, we have Present Tense Machine by a Norwegian author whose name I'm not going to even try to pronounce. Now, I read this at your recommendation, so I don't think I need to say much about it. This is a book about a mother and a daughter who get... No, I'll tell you. It's okay. It's about a mother and daughter who get separated into two parallel realities, and so it, like, follows the two parallel realities, and, like, yeah, there's not much else to say about that. It was pretty good. It was nice and short, which I like. I liked some of the writing a lot, but even though I enjoyed it while I was reading it, I found that it didn't stick with me much. Kind of the opposite of this. Like, there were chapters I really loved. The chapters are short, I think, which makes it easy to get through. And if you're looking for more translated fiction, like, it was pretty good. I do recommend it, but I wasn't obsessed with it. I also read Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Now, listen, people love this book. People love this book. I liked it, I would say. This is a sci-fi about a guy who's in space, and he doesn't know why he's up there. He wakes up and he's like, where the fuck am I? And it's space. And then he's like, what am I doing up here? And then he has to, like, figure it out. And there's aliens. That's kind of a spoiler, but there's also not, because it's the best part of the book. There's aliens. My favorite part of the book was about the language. I like reading about language. My favorite part of the book was about the language between him and the alien and, like, how they learn to communicate with each other. That was really well done. Other than that, it was fine. It was fine. I wasn't blown away. The twist was predictable and boring. The characters were made of nothing. And the plot, I guess, was plotting because he was in space and it was intense. But like, I'm not gonna write home about it. But it was good. And if you want like an easy sci-fi to maybe like get into the genre, this seems like the way to go because I don't read a lot of sci-fi, and this was super accessible to me. Easy peasy, fun. It's by the same author who wrote The Martian, which is the book that turned into the movie. So if you like that movie, you'll probably like this book. Yeah, nice and good. Nice and good. I have to go faster, I'm realizing, because this is already 27 minutes long, and I'm halfway through. So I have to go faster. Next up, we have The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. This is a book about a town. No. This is a book about an author who is writing to people in this small town, all separately, letters in the mail. And it's historical. It takes place right after World War II, I believe. And it was good. It's all written in like epistolary format, so it's just letters back and forth. Sweet, good, nice, pleasant, feel good, historical. Not much to say about it. Next up, The Sound of a Wild Snail Eating by Elizabeth Tova Bailey. Also one of my favorite covers of the year. Look, it's so cute and it has a little snail on it. This is a book that is a memoir-ish, which is, I think my favorite genre is memoir-ish. Anyway, it's a memoir-ish about a woman who is ill. She has a chronic illness and it is like taken over her life. So she like can't really participate in society. She's basically just in bed all day. She doesn't have enough energy to do anything. And she gets a snail as a pet, and the snail lives on her nightstand in its little terrarium. And she learned so many things about life through the snail, and it was sweet. And I learned a lot about snails. But I have to say, the most exciting part about this book for me was when she name dropped Tim Pierce of the, I don't remember what, something natural history, something. I don't remember. She said Tim Pierce, and I was like, I know him. I know that guy from TikTok because he has those videos where he goes, "Hello, it's Tim Pierce. I'm Tim Pierce from the Natural History Museum here with another snail joke for you." And then he tells a snail joke, and I was like, I literally know that guy. But this was written pre-TikTok, and it was just talking about his research about snails. I was like, that's crazy. That's like, I know Tim Pierce. Wild. This was sweet, good, short, nice. If you care about snails, it's the way to go. Next is Detransition Baby by Tori Peters. I think that's how you say her name. Now listen, I was excited to read this, and it didn't quite let me down, but I also didn't really like it. That's so interesting. That's the best way I can put it. I don't think I liked this book, but I liked reading it. Like, I was thinking about it a lot while I was reading it, and I still have been. The main character sucks. I'm sorry. The more I've sat with this, the more I think that. And everybody online is all like, yeah, but like a main character doesn't have to be a good person. I'm like, yeah, I fucking, like, I know that, but I still need to want to read the book. Sometimes a main character sucks, and you like, it's great. Like, you love reading that. And like, I didn't feel that way about her. I can't remember her name now. What was it? I don't know. I didn't care about her that much. And every time she made a decision or spoke, I was like, what are we doing? Girl, like, what are we doing? You know, and that was kind of hard for me. But other than that, I did think this was interesting, and I got a lot from it. I really enjoyed the parts about Amy's childhood / adolescence. Like, that was great. If I could read a whole book of just that, it would be super high up on this list. But yeah, I didn't love it. But I also really appreciated reading a book that was so rooted in queerness that it was like the central core of everything. Like, that was really good. I liked that a lot. So I don't know. I go back and forth about it. I think if you're interested and you think you might like it, you should try it. Because worst case scenario, you feel like I did. And you're like, well, I didn't like it, but I don't feel like I came away with nothing. And that's a pretty good place to be, I think. Next up. It's Milk Fed by Melissa Broder. Listen. I read this because Frankie told me to, and I trust Frankie very much. And I still do, although I'm not obsessed with this book the way that they are. I thought it was fine. But I also liked it. So, I don't know. This is about a young woman, I think she's like 22-ish, whose entire life is ruled by her disordered eating. And then she meets someone her age-ish who's an Orthodox Jewish woman named Miriam, and she like develops this relationship with her. She becomes pretty obsessed with her, and it's just like about that. And I had some issues with this and some things that I loved, and I think that's put it squarely in the middle for me. I loved the depiction of being queer in a religious Jewish community. I have never in my years read something that was that accurate. I was like, oh, this is a little intense for me, because it's really good, really, really perfectly done. At same end of the coin, that's not how that phrase works, but that's okay. I thought the description of the food was incredible. Like the food and the eating like was so good. The stakes felt so high all the time, which is what Frankie said about this, but they were right. Like even just the stakes of like eating a frozen yogurt felt like so intense. My heart was racing. Like that's crazy to accomplish that with like something that seems so unimportant. Really well done. That being said, I don't think that those two elements, which are more like environment based, translated to the characters. So like even though I cared about the eating and I cared about the community and I cared about the queerness and I cared about the Judaism, I didn't actually care about the characters. Like I didn't care about Rachel, who's the main character, and I didn't really care about Miriam that much either, but I maybe a little more, but like not that much. If anything, I felt like the whole book I was waiting for things to crash and burn for Rachel. Like I was waiting because she meets Miriam and things start getting better for her. Like she starts being able to eat more freely. She starts like thinking critically about her relationship with her mother, and she starts like I don't know, all those things that are like good. And I was just waiting for it to like all fall apart, but then it just didn't. And like that was really disappointing to me. And maybe that's bad that I want my main character to suffer, but like it's not because I don't want Rachel to be happy. It's just what I felt like the story should have been, and then it wasn't. And I think that's because I feel like the improvement was unearned. Like it just kind of happened, and I was waiting for her to realize that it was fake, that like she was lying to herself, and that like this isn't actually going to be as easy as just meeting one lady who's like, hey, you should try this frozen yogurt, and then you eat it because you think she's hot. Like, but then that was just it, and I was like, oh, I guess, yeah, sure, I'm happy for you. I guess that's kind of spoily, but it's also not, because it's more about what didn't happen than what did. But it wasn't bad. Like I'm glad I read it, you know, and I would read something else by her if I felt like it, but maybe not like right away. Next up, I don't have this one with me. This is Funny Story by Emily Henry. I like Emily Henry. I think her books are fun and good. I thought this book was fun and good. I love Book Lovers. I have liked her other ones. I didn't love Happy Place, and this was somewhere in between. I liked it. I don't have anything to say about it. Like it's fun, easy, rom-com, summer. That's it. Like, she's good at writing romances that have actual substance to them. Sorry, nobody get mad at me. And so I appreciate that. And that's it. Like, I have nothing else to say. I'm sorry. Next up, In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. I read this also toward the beginning of the year, maybe over the summer. I don't remember now. I liked this quite a bit. We're getting to the territory of books I really enjoyed. This is a memoir about domestic abuse in a queer relationship and the nuances of that. It's very well written, and that's kind of all I need. Like, your book can be about pretty much whatever, and if it's written well, I will like it, and that's how I felt about this. That being said, I don't think I liked it quite as much as I was led to believe I would like it by people on this here website. It was very good, but like it wasn't perfect. There were times where it dragged a little bit. There were times where it felt unnecessarily repetitive. There were times where it was repetitive, and I think that served a purpose. And there were times where I was like, we don't need to be doing this over and over again. But all that being said, it was really good. I love memoir-ish, as we know, which this felt like to me. The whole thing is told with this framing of like a house as an ever-changing metaphor, and then like the house like changes every chapter. I don't know how to explain that very well, but like the chapters are really short, which makes it easy to fly through. There was one section that was written in the form of a choose-your-own-adventure novel that was one of the most effective pieces of writing I've ever seen with my own two eyes. Like, so good. So good. Yeah. I liked it quite a bit, and I still think about it a lot. Pretty good stuff. Next up, The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry by Gabrielle Zevin. you know, I'm thinking about this, and now I kind of think it should be a little bit lower down. Not that much, but just a little bit. Tomorrow is one of my favorite books of all time, if not the. Like, I really adore that book. Gabrielle Zevin has also written a book called Elsewhere that I read in high school or middle school that I hated with an intensity that has been unparalleled. I've yet to hate a book the way that I hated that book. And when I figured out that this was the same author, my mind was blown. I was like, there's no way. There's no way. So I needed to read one other thing in order to tip the scales one way or the other, because, like, that's an intense difference for me. And this certainly tipped it in the positive direction. I liked it a lot. It's very cute. This is a book about a bookstore owner who is so grumpy and sad all the time. And then he adopts a little girl. And then he's so happy because he has a daughter. And that's basic. And there's a romance also. And, like, it was really good. It was sweet. It was good. It was happy. The writing was cute. The kid was cute. It was a little bit, like, pandery about being a book for readers. It was, like, you know, because it takes place in a bookstore, so it's all about, like, books are so important and we love them so much, and, like, nobody gets it but us, and, like, the little secret world of people who love books, we're just all so special, aren't we? And, like, that got a little old for me, but it was still cute. Like, I'm not mad about it, I guess. Next up is Are You Listening by Tillie Walden. This was the last book I read this year. I liked it quite a bit. Tillie Walden, my beloved. We'll get to more of her later. I love her to bits. To bits, I say. This is a graphic novel. It's beautiful. Girl, you can't see. It's beautiful. Let me show you the pool. Hold on. Look at this kitty in the pool. Wow. Isn't that beautiful? That's so beautiful. It's really so beautiful. It's beautiful. Oh my gosh, all of her art is so good. The way a Tillie Walden book smells when you open it. Oh, I know that might be just a graphic novel thing, but it's actually not. Anyway, this book is about a young... How old is she? I'm assuming she's 18. Yeah, they say she's 18. An 18-year-old who goes on, like, a road trip with someone, an adult, and it's about them going on this road trip, talking about being queer and, like, what that means, and, like, abuse at home. Don't read this if you have, look up trigger warnings, basically, but, like, I think we'll all be fine. There's nothing super graphic. And they get a cat. That's the cat. Her name is Diamond. And they get a cat. And then these scary men start following them because they're after the cat and they're really scary. And that was, like, a little weird for me because I was like, oh, I didn't know we were in sci-fi, fantasy, weird land. Like, I thought this was just a story. But it makes sense for her writing. Like, she does stuff like that a lot. And it was good. It's like a coming-of-age, nice, found family, beautiful. Like, just so beautiful. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. I love her. I love her. I love her. I do. Next up, a surprise, like, favorite of the year. I read this for class. This is The Ungrateful Refugee by Dina Nayeri. This was the same class that I read Edward Said and The Lemon Tree and the Richard Blanco memoir for. And I think something else also, but I don't remember. All of those I liked enough. This was, like, so good. So good. And once again, it's because the writing's really good. This is, you guessed it, a memoir-ish. A memoir-ish. It's nonfiction, and it's partly a memoir, but partly just, like, general nonfiction about the asylum process for refugees. Actually, mainly not in America, a little bit in America, but they were talking a lot about Europe, which makes sense, because they were specifically talking a lot about Arab refugees. The author is Iranian, which appeals to me, and she talks about growing up in Iran and then moving as a young child and, like, how that was for her and the difference between her experience as a refugee versus the experiences that she's seen in everyone else, like, as someone who is, like, involved in refugee processes. And it's really good. It's really, really, really good. It's really beautifully written. Like, in the middle of all of this other stuff, there's a lot of commentary about, like, the nature of truth and the nature of stories and the nature of fiction, because she's talking a lot about, like, the stories that a refugee has to tell in order to be granted asylum and how those are not believed even though they're true, and how, like, in order to make it sound true you have to lie, which is so backwards, but, like, that's just how it is. there's one line where she's talking about like fiction and lies and stories, and she's talking about being at a workshop for her own writing, and she says, on the crisp autumn afternoon when my novel was first workshopped, I was consumed with fear that I had told lies. Of course, I had lied. I had written a novel. A running joke in workshops is this: a novice submits a story and it falls flat. It isn't believable. In defense of his story, he shouts, "But it happened!" Too bad, our teachers say. That's why the novelist has a tougher job than God. God can have coincidences and melodrama and silly, pointless scenes that don't move the story forward. That it happened doesn't make it true enough for fiction, and like the asylum seeker who isn't believed, novels that are seen to lie are doomed to death. Holy crap, right? Like, I think about that. I've thought about that everything that I have read since I've read this book, I have thought about that line. That it's true doesn't make it believable enough for fiction? Oh my god. Yeah, I got a lot out of this one. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much that I bought one of her fiction books that I plan on reading this year. I don't know how it's going to be. Sometimes I read people's nonfiction and I love it, and then their fiction doesn't hit the mark for me, but I think I might love this, so we're going to see. But yeah, this was a nice surprise for me after a semester of reading books that I didn't really enjoy from this professor. This was like a real goldmine, and I liked it a lot, and I highly recommend it. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Yes. I don't need to tell you. This was a reread. Oh, that's something else I need to tell you. We're entering the point where a lot of the books up here at the top are books that I reread, so I already knew I loved them because they're favorites of mine, and maybe that's unfair, but it's the truth, and I don't want to lie to you. Hunger Games, I reread it. It's great. I have nothing to say. You know what the Hunger Games is about. Yeah. Okay. Next. Heartstopper! 1 and 2. I have been wanting to read these for years. Like, it feels like decades, which is an exaggeration, obviously, but barely. And I always said, like, I don't want to read them from the library for some reason, because, like, I just wanted to own them. They're so beautiful, and, like, they look so pretty on my shelves, and, like, I love graphic novels, so I was like, I should just buy them, but then I never got around to buying them. But then I finally did, and they were wonderful, really good. I haven't read the rest of them yet, and I do want to, and I will. I don't think I need to tell you what Heartstopper's about either. You know. Like, you know. It's fine. You know, it's Heartstopper. Like, look at them. They're adorable. They're so cute. And it's really good. Thank you. Next up, oh, this was a surprise as well. I really enjoyed this book. This is Beautyland by Marie Helen Bertino. I think that's her name. I loved this book. Loved it. It's due for a reread. I think that I would get a lot more out of it on a second read. But I really, really loved it. This is a book about a girl named Adina who is convinced that she's an alien. She thinks that she's an alien, and she was sent by her kind in order to do research on humanity and then send, like, these faxes back to her home planet that explain what humanity is like. Whether that's true or not is up for debate. I think it's not, but I also think maybe it is. So, I don't know. But it's really not a sci-fi. Like, that's there as a narrative device, and it's really well done. See, this is a Nothing Happens book. If you asked me the plot of this book, I would be able to tell you nothing. I know she goes to school at some point. I know she lives in New York at some point. That's it. That's all I've got. You see, but I loved it anyway. So no plot, just vibes is fine. It's just a problem when they don't do the vibes right. Okay? Thank you. Anyway, it's really well done. I think that the whole idea of, like, being an alien and being an outsider from the rest of society translated really well as a metaphor for neurodivergency, although that was kind of touched upon as, like, it's not actually that. Like, there was one part where she was like, everybody thinks I'm autistic, but I'm actually just an alien, and I was like, are you sure? Are you sure? So that was interesting, but I really, really loved it. It has, like, all of those little meditations about humanity that I love so much that just, like, make you fall in love with people, and it's really special. Highly recommend. Good stuff. Yeah. Next up, and we're nearing the end. This is, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is 9. Beautyland was 10. Okay, this is number 9. Is Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. Yes, I know. Listen, Normal People is also one of my favorite books of all time. We'll get to that later. And I love it. I love it to death. I have read all of her other books. I have not loved them. And that was hard for me because I know she's a good writer because I've read Normal People, but like some of her things in her other books just didn't work for me. And so I went into this not really knowing how it was going to go. And I read the beginning of it and I didn't like it very much. But then something clicked. This is about two brothers. Hold on, I need to sneeze. Okay, I guess I don't need to sneeze. This is about two brothers and their lives following the death of their father. So it's a lot about grief and brotherhood and each of their individual relationships with the women in their lives. It was very interesting to read something from her that was centering men. Like, not that, like, her other books have men in them, obviously, but, like, this was more than I was used to. And obviously that's kind of a generalization. Like, the women in their lives are kind of the key players of the story, more than they are even. And there's a lot to be said about that. But still, like, regardless, that was just interesting. And I think she did a good job with it. I hated passionately the writing when we're following Peter. Oh my god. Oh my gosh. And again, I saw people talking about this and being like, if you can't handle literary fiction writers like playing with the English language, then like this genre's not for you. And I was like, listen. I'm all for playing with language. I love that shit. But it still has to be readable. I'm sorry. Like I know Sally Rooney knows how to write a sentence. Your sentence has to have a subject in it. Sorry, controversial, hot take here. Your sentence has to have a subject in it. You can't say, looks at his phone. That's not a sentence. If you throw one of those in there, fine, I get it. It's there for artistic integrity, whatever. A whole page of that? No! It's so hard to read. It's not that I think it's like, I'm not like, this is wrong because it's not what a sentence should be. Like, I'm not like a stickler for like the rules for the sake of the rules. But when I have a headache because I'm trying to read one page of your book, that's a problem for me. That made me really upset. But I got over it because the rest of it was really good. The writing was really good. The characters were really good. The relationships were good. The plot was good. Like, I got over it. But, like, really, we don't need to be doing all that. That made me really upset. Thank you. Oh my gosh. I really hope someone agrees with me on that because I've yet to find anyone. Everyone seems fine with this, and I was not fine with it. Okay. Number 8. We're up to number 8. Is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. Oh, I love this book so much. I read this while I was in Boston and it was really fun. I don't want to tell you anything. Oh my gosh. I don't want to tell you a word. It's fantasy-ish. It's about a guy who lives in this weird place. A weird house. And the house has lots of hallways, and the house has the ocean in it, and the house is magical, but maybe not, and we don't know who he is. He doesn't really know who he is. There doesn't really seem to be anybody else in this house, but then maybe there are other people in the house, but who are they? I don't know. And it's so good. Oh, it's so special. It's magical. It's literally magical because it's fantasy, but it's like magical to read. And it's nice and short, and it's the kind of book where you don't really get any answers. Like, you get some answers, but that's not the point. The point isn't the answers. The point is the atmosphere and the immersion, and it's just so well done. Oh, I loved it. It was a joy. Yeah, highly recommend. You should read that one. It's really good. Next up is The Vanishing Half by Brit Bennett. Oh. Now listen, this is, first of all, Kit, your copy of the book, so like, you need this back. And obviously I know you love this book because you told me to read it. I think I need to reread it because thinking about it right now, I don't remember that much. I don't remember any characters' names. I don't remember anything. But I know I loved it. I think I loved it so much that I read it in like a sitting and a half, and like none of it stuck. You know what I mean? Like, I just devoured it because it was so good. And so now I need to reread it. I'll reread it. I think most people have read this book because it's really famous and popular, but that's for a reason. Sometimes things are famous and popular and they're bad, and sometimes they're famous and popular and they're really good. So this is a really good one. Yeah, this is everything that I wanted the Heaven and Earth grocery store to be. This was like, it had the generational story, it had like the really well-written characters that I just cared about so much. It had like the relationships, it had the social commentary, like everything. Yeah, like you need that more than you need plot. Like, if you care what this book is about, then look it up. But like, that should be enough for you. Like, it's perfectly executed, really beautifully done, excellent work. I will read it again. Yes, thank you. Yes. Why do I keep saying thank you? I don't know. Who am I thanking? The author? I guess. Thank you, Britt Bennett. Next up, 6. I forgot to say. That was 7. This is 6. Yeah! Oh, my love. Again, this is a reread. I will tell you, is a reread. I already knew I would love it. And, like, it's not fair. I know it's not fair that 4 out of the 5 books in my top 5 are things I've already read. But, like, I read them because I love them. So what do you want me to say? This is On a Sunbeam by Tillie Walden. She's the best to ever do it. And I mean that. I mean that. This is my favorite graphic novel. No, it's not. Blankets is my favorite graphic novel. This is a close second. Ah, is that true? Am I lying right now? No, that is true. Blankets is my favorite. This is my second favorite. This is about... I don't even know where to start. I don't even know where to start. First of all, it's beautiful. As we've established, Tillie Walden is the best to ever do it. And it's the most beautiful. Like, it's just beautiful. It's a feast for the eyes, and I think you will love it. And if you haven't read this book, and you like graphic novels, get to it. Get to it. I don't even really want to tell you what it's about. It's a sci-fi-ish. They're in space. You see? They're in space. There's no man in this book. Isn't that nice? Tillie Walden is really good at writing books that men are just absent from. And it's, like, just so refreshing and nice. And, like, it's just really well done. It's about these 2 girls that are in this, like, boarding school in space, basically. And it follows 2 timelines. So it follows one timeline of them in school, in high school, as they're developing a relationship. And then one timeline after school following one of them, that one, as she's, like, thinking about this relationship and, like, kind of seeking her out again. And it's so good. It always makes me cry. And then when I'm reading the very end, I have to hold the book away from me because I don't want my tears to ruin the art. And it's just, like, I don't even want to spoil anything. There's one part with the coloring in this book that just, like, takes my breath away every single time I get up to it. And it's so good. And their spaceships look like little koi fish. Ah! Are you kidding me? Yes. 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 Read it, please. Oh my gosh. Love it so much. Thank you, Tillie Walden. Let's all say it together. Thank you, Tillie Walden. You're welcome. Okay. At number 5, we have Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. I am honestly shocked at how high up this is because I went into it with middling expectations. Like, I thought I would like it, but I wasn't expecting it to be, like, a favorite. It is so good. It's so good. I know this is, like, a booktube darling, so people have probably heard about it already, like, ad nauseum, but it's really good. It follows 2 women who are married, one of whom is a marine biologist, and she goes on a mission in a submarine that's supposed to last, like, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then she doesn't come back for 6 months, and it's like, what happened down there? And it's 2 timelines, so we're following when she comes back and, like, seeing the aftermath of all of that through the perspective of her wife, like, trying to deal with all of this. And then we also flash back to her in the submarine. It's just so good. It's so atmospheric and, like, well written, and, like, the romance in it I loved. Like, I know that wasn't the point of the book, but I thought it was beautiful. I don't want to say too much. It's, like, a little bit horror thriller-y. Like, it's got some body horror stuff going on. Like, the whole, like, came back wrong thing is, like, the whole point of the book. And it's, like, about, I don't want to say too much. Because, like, it's not a book that gives you any answers. Like, it's not about that. There's mystery after mystery tacked upon each other, and you keep waiting for there to be, like, some closure with anything, and there just isn't. And I'm so okay with that. So you need to be the kind of person that's going to be okay with that. But if you are, like, it's really good. It's really something special. Okay. Number 4. And this is the last one that wasn't a reread. So I'm going to probably spend the longest on this one and breeze through the other 3. But that's Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr. Wow, there was a goldmine of kit recommendations this year because this was so good. So good. I devoured this book, and look how long it is. That's pretty long for me. I tend to read, like, little ones. This was a big guy, and I really loved it. This is, I was going to say historical fiction, but it's also not. Yeah, I really can't. I don't know even how to describe this to you. If you haven't read this book, it's like a little bit of a masterpiece, I think. And it follows like 6 different characters in like 6 different timelines. It might be 5. I'm not really counting, but like plenty is the point. And they all connect through their shared love of this one play, and it's beautiful. I don't know what else to say, and I know that's not a good description, and you're gonna be like, wow, she's really bad at describing books. But listen, I don't want to tell you anything, because it was magical. It was a magical experience. I absolutely devoured it. The writing's beautiful. I cried so many times. The plot twists were twisting. It's really good. It's really something special, and I love it a lot. And guess what? Thank you, Anthony Doerr. Yes, that's right. Everybody say thank you. Yep. Honestly, you guys, I think I'm going to breeze through 321, because these are like 3 of my favorite books already, and I read them as rereads, so like I don't know what you want me to say. And that's Circe by Madeline Miller, Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel, and Normal People by Sally Rooney. What do you want me to say? You know what these books are about. Greek mythology, pandemic, Connell Waldron. Connell Waldron, you know? I don't know what to say, because these are like already perfect books, and I knew that going into it. And Kit, I know you don't like Station 11, and I'm not mad about it, but like, I do love it, and that's okay. We're allowed to disagree. I don't know what to say. I love these books. I do. So much. You know, I will say, I hadn't read Circe in a very long time, like years, and I forgot how much I loved it. Like, I knew I loved it, but it blew me away all over again. This is, oh, so good. Like, just so good. When I talk about writing being, like, the number one in my reading experience, this is a perfect example of that. This book is, she uses words in a way that I don't think is normal. I don't think it's normal. Like, I think she has a different understanding of the English language than I do. Because, like, to be able to do this with the same letters that I have access to, oh my gosh, I don't know how she's doing that, but it's really good. Please read this. If you haven't read it, please read it. I know people love Song of Achilles, and that book is also really good, and if you're looking for, like, queer love story, then I guess that's the one for you, but, like, I like this one more. It's really good. Yeah. Now, you just heard my book flop on the ground. I'm not going to say anything about Station 11 and Normal People. Maybe I'll do a different video one time talking about my favorite books. But I don't have anything to say. I love them. I love them, and they're really good, and I love them. But, like, the standouts this year were Cloud Cuckoo Land, Our Wives Under the Sea, Piranesi, Beautyland. Like, those are my big ones. I do think I had a really good reading year. I was not planning on reading this many books, and I know that this is a lot less than some people on booktube are like, I read 130 books this year, and I'm like, okay, that's not me. It couldn't be me. I'm sorry, but I did the best I could, and I'm still proud of it. And I'm really excited to read more this year. My plan this year is to read a lot of Toni Morrison. I'm really excited about that, because I haven't read any Toni Morrison before, and I know I will love it. I know I will, and this is going to be the time. It's gonna be the time. So listen, this was long. I've never done this before. I don't know how it's gonna go, but I thank you for joining me for the ride, and that's it. Happy New Year, everybody. I hope that you got something out of this, and Kit, I hope that you are like, wow, Dana is really cool and awesome. And I'm like, she's the coolest friend I've ever had, and like, she's so cool and awesome, and like, she read so many cool books, and like, I should read all of her favorite books, and I should probably even read Station 11 again, even though I didn't like it the first time, but like, Dana loves it, and like, that must mean it's really good. So that's all I have to say. Goodbye, Happy New Year, thank you for coming. Everybody say thank you to all the authors. Thank you, good night, thank you.